Hey guys, hello and welcome to Spud Life with me, your host, Tatty Tim. Okay, so without further ado, let's crack on with this week's episode.
Yep. Hello, here we are again for another episode of the Caravan of Love. It's Spud Life, and today I've got with me runner extraordinaire, Mr. Bobby Gard-Storry. Not Story, as he's normally called.
Story, yeah.
Story rhymes with lorry, as I've been informed. So nice to meet you, buddy.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks
man.
for coming along.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming along.
Good to be here.
So, fell running.
Yeah.
So, what got you into that? Because I'm guessing, is it a peculiarly Cumbrian thing? I mean, did I do it in Wales and other mountainous
they do it
areas?
all over the country.
Yeah.
It's not exclusively Cumbrian, no, but the sort of origins of it are really in Cumbria.
Right.
It's, hill running in Scotland, they call it hill running.
Yeah.
Fells, but like in Yorkshire it's a big thing as well.
Yeah.
And in Wales they do it
So
as
it's
well.
not just cross country?
No, it's not.
There's a distinct...
So, really it's just a version of mountain running. So elsewhere in the world, obviously, they'd run up mountains, they call it mountain running.
Yeah.
We just call them fells.
So it's just called fell running. Yeah.
But fell racing, which is like the sort of sport version of the activity, is a bit unique because in between the checkpoints, so let's say you've got a route that's like 4 or 5 checkpoints, in between them you take whatever route you like. You don't have to stick on that particular path. If you think it's going to be a bit quicker to nip off down there,
really,
that's not cheating. That's on. You know what I mean? And that's where a lot of
is that peculiar to that? To fell running.
That's fell racing,
per se.
Because like if you do a trail race or something like that, or what the master does, you pretty much have to stick to the route. You'd be cheating. If you get to a load of zigzags, and you cut them all. You'd be cheating. But fell running, no, that's. You're just being
right.
So that's one of the things that distinguishes fell racing from other stuff. But like fell running as a whole, there's lots of people who enjoy fell running who maybe don't like the racing because they don't like the competitive aspect of it. But yeah, I think really any time that you're running on the fells,
you're fell running.
That's it. Simple as that. So there's no barrier to entry. If someone thinks, if they do part run or something, they just think, maybe I'll try it out. Go and run the fells. That's it. You're doing it.
You're
there's no barrier.
No.
Or sometimes people come it from the running direction. Sometimes people come at it more from like fell walking and camping and stuff. And then they just think, I could do this a bit quicker. And then they start running.
Because you're a member of Eden Runners, aren't you?
Yeah. So
Eden Runners, have they got their own offshoot of like a fell running side shoot or not?
Yeah. So Eden Runners is it's a great club. Based in Penrith, obviously, but whole Eden area. And it's fairly big because it has all different types of runners in it.
Right.
There's some really top quality road runners. Some track, not so much track. But road definitely, and people who like more what you'd call a trail running kind of. But the fell runners group within it is maybe 20, 30, 40 people, depending on. We do like a training session once a week, and then the people who go out to races, it's a bit of a core group. But always welcome more.
And we're always there you go. If you fancy doing a bit of running, I'm going to put all these links in later on all the socials, so you can. There's no excuses. You can get out and start running.
Eden Runners is a really good club for beginners. Runners or fell runners or any kind of running. Because it's big enough that there's lots of different sessions on.
Right.
So if you are a beginner, there'll be a session.
So if you've only ever sort of been to park run
if you're a bit nervous,
or just kind of they'll look after you and make you feel welcome, and away you can go. It's not like an elitist kind of.
No.
You're just getting down.
And people think that they think, I'm not a runner, so I wouldn't join a club.
So
no, that's exactly who you should join a club because it'll introduce you to running friends. You can, if you're not sure if you want to learn, improve. Spot on for that.
Because I'm guessing there's techniques and there's sort of skills you can kind of learn. It's not just a matter of sticking a pair of trainers on and just going for it.
No, I think if you get into it, and especially if you want to sort of find out how far you can go with it, maybe distance or speed or something like that. Then you definitely have to give a bit of thought to maybe, training, how much you're running, what type of running you're doing, what you're eating or other things. And then if you want to do races, especially like fell races, there's definite technique, especially when it comes to the downhills. Because it's something that you could go out and practice yourself and figure out. But if you maybe come out with someone a bit experienced, give you a few pointers,
and you're not starting right at the very bottom, are you? So where did your sort of love or where did you start? Was it just at school or?
Well, I grew up in Grisdale. With a Z, Grisdale Forest. And and I started running as a teenager, and I honestly I can't tell you why really. It's a bit odd when I think about it, because I used to get, when I was like 14 years old, and most of these don't, I get up at 5 a.m. and go for a run.
Right.
I don't know what, I didn't go very far, but I just like, even in the middle of winter, I just go out for a run in the morning before school.
Right.
And I think it was just, I don't know, maybe I had a notion it was good fitness.
Yeah.
But
Or maybe it's just because you've always been surrounded by that, the great outdoors, and it's just, maybe it's just
I grew up,
inbred.
it was a very outdoory family. My dad did take us camping and all this kind of stuff. So I was very comfortable being out and about.
Yeah.
But my first race was at school, because I went to school in Coniston, secondary school. And that's, I think, one of the only schools probably in the country that has a fell race. It was mandatory for everyone. So you had 200 kids and shot them all out. 95% of them didn't want anything to do with it, but they had to do it. They walked it or whatever, so just walk it with their mates. But there was a few of us did run it. So that would be my first race. And then,
so was that on like sport? Was that school sports though? Was it another?
It was a separate event.
Just a separate, completely separate event.
It was great school for that, for like outdoor stuff, because obviously being in Coniston, I made the most of it. So the teachers were good at that. They'd get us out.
Is it a secondary school?
Yeah.
Is it? Where is it?
It's just down the Lake Road. So if you know where the Chippy is, it's just down.
It's just down from there.
Yeah.
All right.
If you're coming into Coniston from like Torver, you can see it. You see the school. You see the rugby pitch.
Yeah.
And it's got like. You can see the building. It's only small.
I was going to say, what, 500 people
200.
max? Oh, right.
200 kids, yeah.
Wow.
So each year was like 30 of us, barely anything.
That's
It was nice. You knew everybody.
Yeah.
You knew everyone's name in the school.
Yeah.
But so that was like the first race. And then I didn't... There are lots of junior races and stuff.
Right.
Kids get really into it. But I didn't really do that kind of stuff until, I was a bit older, about 8 years ago or something. I started racing as a senior, as an adult.
Right.
But there's so many races in Cumbria. Every year there's like nearly 100 races probably. So from March on, any weekend you want to do a race,
there's something. There's something
and all different distances.
And some are more sort of popular, famous than others. Like Grasmere Sports Day's a big one, isn't it? I can't remember the name of the guy. Was it Josh something?
Josh Naylor.
Yeah, he's the. Yeah, he's the god in it.
That name is like synonymous with fell running.
And was he? What was he? Just like a farmer or what? Or
yeah, he's a shepherd. Really.
Right, right.
Farmer in Wasdale. Yeah. I mean, he did. Like a lot of people that did odd jobs farming. He worked at Sellafield at one point and stuff like that. But he's a farmer there, and he's still, he's still going.
Oh, is he still going now?
He's still going. I mean, he doesn't run now.
Right.
He's late 90s now.
Wow.
I imagine. And he had a stroke a few years ago, but he's still like
so he turns up.
He turns up.
Bloody hell.
If you go and do Wasdale race, which is a big classic route, one of the bigger ones.
Yeah,
he'll turn up. He'll be there. Yeah.
But it's great, isn't it? Because you go to any sort of country show around here, and there's always a fell race. Isn't there? There's the dog show down at Patterdale. That's always got a big one. We go to the Borrowdale show. That's always got one. Every single show has got its own fell race as well.
See, the show fell races, they are really the origin of the sport, because in the 1800s...
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, so guides races, like Grasmere, classic example, right? So, there's a sports sort of element to the shows, and it would be the shepherds and whoever would have these foot races to, just sort of demonstrate their ability, and maybe then they get hired as a guide or whatever.
Right, yeah.
So
this was when the Lakes was becoming a sort of touristy destination.
Yeah, and a bit of bragging rights as well, I imagine. And it used to be a big betting thing, actually.
I bet.
Like, this guy was the favoured
man,
runner. So those races, and what's cool about them is they're all quite short, because the idea is, say go, everyone runs out the ring, they run up the crag, you can see it. If you're just a punter, you can watch them go up, come down. It's all done in half an hour, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then in the sort of, through the decades, in the sort of 60s and 70s, this sort of other layer of the racing scene emerged, which are the longer ones, like Wasdale and those sort of like classic horseshoe round the valley. You start in the valley and you hit all the tops around, and they're more like 20 miles or something like that. So you're out there for a few hours.
Bloody hell, sort of almost a marathon, up a hill, up and down a hill.
There are some really long ones, like Old County Tops is a classic race, and that's like 30 miles, so it's beyond the marathon.
Jesus Christ.
Josh is like classic name. Another name like Billy Bland.
Did he start, was he the 60s kind of generation?
Exactly, So he was, in that era when those races were coming up, he was winning them all.
Right.
And in fact, what's interesting is if you look at those very early results from those races, he would be winning them, but he was in late 30s, 40s at that point. So you think if they had come along 20 years before, he might have been winning those races for 20 years. You know what I mean? As it was, he didn't necessarily have that long at his peak
Yeah.
when those races were around.
Right, got you.
Whereas someone like Billy Bland, who was just that one step along, he got a good stretch of, he just dominated for decades. You know what I mean? Like the whole through the 80s.
I see. Yeah. He was the man to beat.
Yeah, and him and his family actually is, like his brother and his nephew, between them have won.
Are they?
Yeah, it's just one of them.
So I wonder, it must have been the genes, mustn't it? It must be genetics. I mean, and them guys as well, they'll have had no fancy gear.
No,
probably barely even a pair of trainers.
Yeah, and they'll tell you as well. Oh yeah, you meet and they'll be like, oh well, we never had this, we never had bloody, they're a bit old school. Yeah. Oh, it's cool, they still like to keep in touch with what's going on in the sort of scene.
Which is good, because I mean they've obviously fostered it and created it and made it to what it is now. Yeah, absolutely. See, people that age that were still running, because he was still running into his 70s.
Just did the challenges up through. He'd do like 60 at 60 was his one, so that was like 60 tops at age 60. Yeah. And 70 at 70 I think he did. Right. So he was running like probably late mid 70s.
Wow.
I mean, and pretty much his whole running time, he had some pretty serious like knee problem or something like that.
Oh, I know that. I feel his pain. No way.
He just half the stuff he ever did with this problem. He just sort of blocked it out.
That's insane.
But he spent his whole life on the fell. He's a shepherd. So he's up and out there and getting battered by the weather. So you go out for a race a few hours, you're like, well, what's this? It's a normal day.
It's a normal day, exactly.
You know what I mean? Exactly. Like, the one benefit my job has for me, like, I think it tires me out, but I think that's a benefit to me as well, because I'm out in the weather.
Yeah.
Get used to it.
Well, that's it. I was trying to. It's kind of when I had my last guest that was on, and we were chatting about. I can't think what it was. Oh, he was a judo guy.
Yeah, I listened to it. Yeah.
And I was saying about the Ironman competition, how it was created, because I'm kind of always curious about everything. Yeah. So I googled it, and it turns out that it was this kind of shepherdy type guy. And there's some sort of medal or badge or something that they give to like the ultimate ultra running nut job, like ultra marathon running person, and it's named after this guy, because for him it was just another day at work, and no one told him to stop. No, so he just carried on.
I've heard that story. I remember I listened to that episode and I heard that story. I thought, it reminded me of it, and that events like. Now, like the Spine race, which we just had recently, it comes through Dufton actually, so it's basically the whole Pennines.
Oh, right.
And that's basically the same thing, where it's running clock.
Yeah.
So it takes people like 6 days. For like the fastest.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But you can sleep if you want.
Yeah.
But the clock never stops. So you might be a kipping and something comes,
boom, flying past you.
So that's a whole different.
It's a different thing again, isn't it? Because do you do any other sort of running, or are you just?
I do. I like the variety. I do like the variety, but the short fell races definitely. It's such a community thing as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I go on the weekend and you see people and everything, and they vary as well. It might be, it might be like 2 miles, or it might be 30 miles.
Yeah.
But there is an upper band there. Like I've done in the past, like a 50-mile race was the longest race that I did in a Wanner.
Really?
Yeah. Lakeland 50.
Bloody hell.
Which was fine, but it's very different because it's more on tracks. It's more steady running.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an endurance.
Yeah.
thing.
It's a lot of.
Yeah. And obviously. Something like the Spine, it's dead impressive for the endurance side of it, and I think it's easier for people to wrap their heads around why that's difficult. Yeah. Because the thought of running for 6 days sounds horrendous. Yeah. Whereas if I say about a race that is 40 minutes long, you might think, running for 40 minutes, that sounds kind of difficult. But the speed that someone is going to do that, to me and to fellow runners, like they recognise that is equally difficult, but just a different thing. You know what I mean? Like to be able to do Grasmere sports super duper quickly. Is so difficult, but it's over dead quick. Yeah. So it's not such the endurance. It's but the variety is.
Do a lot of people come from away as well, or not? Or is it fairly localised?
Yeah, people do. Yeah.
So you see a lot of people kind of regular that from.
Especially from like the Yorkshire clubs and stuff, where maybe it's only an hour drive. Yeah. You see them all the time. So I mean, it's very much like if you just turn up at a race, and you do a lot of them, you'll see people guaranteed. Yeah. You just bump into people. And that's what I mean about being social.
Yeah,
it's a community kind of activity.
Yeah.
You just bump into people and that's great. But there's always people coming from that. And people just trying it out.
Yeah.
Which is very friendly. Yeah. You wouldn't necessarily, not every race is appropriate for a beginner.
No.
But there's loads of them that are.
So there's like a competitive edge.
Yeah.
but a friendliness to it as well.
Oh, it's seriously competitive.
I can imagine some people are like, I'm winning this. I'm winning this.
Yeah, like on Saturday, me and this lad, who's a mate of mine, we was in this battle, back and forth, pass each other multiple times over the course of like an hour and a half, to-ing and fro-ing. Yeah. And, I wanted nothing more than to beat him. He's a good man,
Yeah.
And at the end, he beat me. I was like, oh, fair play. You pat him on the back and say, well done. It's just
one of them things, isn't it?
In the moment, you're like, yeah, of course. Yeah. And so obviously, if you are competitive, it lends itself to that.
Yeah.
But there's lots of people who like doing races and they're not that competitive. They just
enjoy.
Like day out.
Yeah.
It's so nice. Just
Well, I mean, there's worse places in the world to go running, isn't there?
Oh, yeah.
So, and this kind of leads nicely into, are you opening a museum in Ambleside?
So there's a museum in Ambleside called the Armit Museum, and they're doing an exhibition at the minute. Yeah. That is the history of fell running, really. Right. It's called Running in Fells. Yeah. And that's the name of the exhibition. A fellow called Pete Todhunter, who actually... So the link back there, he basically has all of Joss Naylor's archives, right? Because he was a mate of Joss's back in the day, and Joss at a certain point just said, I don't need all this stuff. You look after it. Yeah. So Pete basically went through it and sorted everything out.
Photos and all.
Photos, maps, all his results lists and everything. And he was like, well, what can we do with this? And so that was the inspiration for this exhibition. But then he's gone from that. That's just a small part of it. He's collected stuff from all over. Yeah. And this was about a year ago. We started sorting it out, and I was like, I can help out with some bits and bobs. So I collected in like all of the different Cumbrian vests, all of the clubs. Yeah. So because all
different. Yeah.
So we got that on the wall, and all sorts of bits and bobs, and lots of other people helped as well. There's probably like 20 of us have helped out in different ways. Yeah. But it's running now, so it's open. Up until December, so a load of time.
All right,
if anyone's interested in fell running, even if they're not a fell runner, but maybe just curious. Yeah, it's great. You can go along.
Where is it in Ambleside?
It's just by the college. So it's just along from the bridge house there and the bottom of the college hill. That's the hill, the bottom of the struggle. Yeah, it's right there.
Right there.
And you'll see a banner for it.
Excellent.
But they can just Google it.
Free to get in, or
it's like a $5 or something like that.
Is it?
Yeah. But if someone's like,
on a wet day, which is usually happening in Ambleside, you know where to go.
Yeah. No, it's good. There's lots of stuff in there to go at, and there's a few other exhibits in the museum as well. Yeah. There's like stuff.
Yeah, all the usual electricity stuff. Yeah.
There's also
bit of Cumberland wrestling and
it's a bit unique. We think it's one of the first exhibits of its kind. And it sort of makes us think like, there should be something permanent. There's so much stuff that they couldn't fit in. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not massive.
No.
It would be good to have something permanent.
So is there because we talked earlier about different parts of the world and the country there, but they call it different things, but it's ultimately the same thing. Is there like a world championships or?
Yeah, there are. There's a few different sort of. There are like world mountain running championships and European mountain running championships and stuff. Right. And the team that like Great Britain will send will typically be fell runners.
Yeah. Some usually people from around here.
Yeah, there'll be there's lads like from Cameroon who No, not yet. I'm not that quick. I'm like I'm all right, but I'm not like.
But I noticed you won. When I was doing my research, Facebook stalking, I think it's known as. There was you is it the Passonthwaite? You'd beaten the time that had stood for donkey's years, hadn't you? I can't think what it was.
I don't know about that.
It was just a couple of years ago. I typed you in on Google and it came up.
Maybe that was at Skidder House.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah,
that's mega neat.
And it was about 2 seconds.
If I talk about it now, and there's like 100 people who could hear this and go and beat that time. No, that's cool. So that's like Skidder House is a hostel that's in the middle of the Northern Fells. Right. It's a unique hostel. It's so remote. Yeah. And me and my girlfriend Rose just happened to be staying there once, and they did a little challenge there from the door, sort of halfway up the fell side to this cloven stone split in half. Yeah. And you run there and back to the door. Right. And you just. But it was like
But it had stood for 30 years or something insane.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
They said it had stood. They said finally at last it has been broken.
It might have been egging it over. I don't know. But I've won a couple of races and stuff, but it's seriously competitive.
Is it? Is it more the love of it for you rather than the? Well, I mean, would you like to be?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah. If you started handing me trophies, give them all in. Yeah. No, but definitely, even if I wasn't, if I was back at the pack, I'd still do it.
You still just enjoy. Enjoy the.
Yeah. But also like that sense of it's a personal, for everyone that's in a race, there's always something to compete with.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe it's the person in front. It might, if at the front of the race, it's to win.
It's to win, yeah.
But if not, it's the person that is usually beats you.
Yeah.
And you know where they are.
Yeah.
I'm going to get them today. You know? Or it's just the person in front of you.
Yeah.
Or even just your own time.
Yeah.
Maybe you did that race last year, you do it this year. You're trying to do it a bit quicker.
Yeah.
You know, like personal best kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there's always something. And age categories is a big thing as well, because there's still folk who do it in the 60s and 70s.
Is there?
And obviously they're not competing with the 20-year-olds, are they?
No.
But within the age category, they can still win that category.
Yeah.
Just like you had last week.
The jiu-jitsu,
exactly. So, you know, there's no point trying to be 60 and trying to compete with 20.
No,
it's a false comparison.
Yeah,
You know, that's not the body you have.
No, exactly.
So, just like men's, women's, you know, there's always a category that you can try at if you're so inclined. But
so do you take in? So when you're running, what's your mindset? Are you taking in the scenery, or are you completely blinkered and in the zone?
It's very different on different runs.
Yeah.
If it's a race, I'm very much locked into like trying hard.
Yeah, the
and
time
every
to beat
second is a bit tough. You know what I mean? I'm dying.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm not really taking in the scenery and stuff. But if I just go out for a run, so I don't tend to think a lot of my runs as like training runs, because they're not in service to the race. They're just like running for the love of it, and for being out.
Yeah.
And on those occasions, I try and stop when I feel like it, or look around. You know what I mean? If there's a nice view, just
take it in. Yeah.
Because like, what's
exactly.
You know, like what's the point of life? You haven't got time to just like look around and take it in.
And that view's gone after that, isn't it? You know, it's only there for that split second.
And it doesn't do you any harm. You know, people are like, no, you know, you time yourself. I'm trying to do this rep.
So are you a Strava fiend?
No. I am on Strava. I'm one of the rare people that I'm on it and I just see what other people do.
Right.
And I don't, because I don't have a sports watch.
Right. Yeah.
Which is like it's quite unusual now. The start of the race, everyone's beep, beep, beep. Well, set it off. But I just like.
You've got a good old-fashioned stopwatch around you now.
Not even that. I'm dead bad. People finish it. What was your time?
Oh, I don't know.
I'll find out on the results clicks. Yeah. But I find that I'm a bit worried because I am quite. I'm quite like that. I like to track stuff, so I'm worried that if I got the sports watch, I'd get too into it. I'd too into it. Yeah. So I'm like, no, I go out, I do the run. If the mood takes me to go up there or up there, I'll do it. And when I get home, I'll work out what I did. Yeah. And then write that down. You know, training log style. Yeah. Because I do like to sort of see what I've done and count the numbers. Yeah. But I don't want to be distracted by that when I'm just out to clear the mind. It's very refreshing. It's like quite meditative. You don't worry so much about what's going on in your life.
You're just kind of doing that, aren't you?
And even, that'll be the case sometimes you're a bit tired, you're a bit stressed or something, that's the perfect time to go for
Absolutely. And that's the time you'll talk yourself out of it as well, isn't it?
You just think, too busy.
I can't be asked tonight.
No, that's when you need.
That's when you've got to go, isn't it? And sometimes those are the best training sessions as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because
and physically even, like my job feels quite heavy. Yeah. And you come home, you think, you're quite tired. Yeah. But going for a run is a whole different movement, and then suddenly it makes you feel lighter. I'm sort of bouncing. You know what I mean? I'm bouncing down the track. Yeah. Oh, this is great. So even though I started feeling tired, it's a different. It's like when you're eating. You know, you have your normal stomach and your pudding stomach. Yes. Yeah. You've got your normal energy and your running energy. It's like a different pool. Yeah. You launch
and
off.
You're gone. Yeah. Because that's led us quite nicely into your day job. Oh yeah. So, dry stow walling is doing everything sort of traditional. Your whole life is very traditional, isn't it? It's kind of like. Oh yeah. Where did you do that from leaving school, or
no?
Did you just kind of stumble into it?
Yeah, I was doing other jobs, and they were fine at the time. But I suppose I don't know where the initial idea came from. But you're just you're surrounded by dress. You can't miss them. You can't. So they're in your consciousness. Yeah. And then at some point, I just thought, you know what, maybe that's interesting. I sort of got curious about it. Yeah. I went and did a short course, just a couple of days, and sort of try it out. And I thought, this is interesting. I had a mate who was a farmer. Yeah. I went and practiced a bit with him.
Yeah, because there's always loads of sheep. Yeah, sheep are constantly knocking down.
So I sort of learnt a bit from him, just bits here and there. Yeah. And then I sort of did a bit for him cheaply, and then he got me some, did
some work.
Yeah, I did some work for him, paid work for him. And then based off that, so I slightly jumped the gun a bit, but I don't think it was a bad thing, because with not very much experience, I just printed out a flyer and it just said on it, picked a few pictures of what I did, said, not the best ever, but I'm dead cheap, give us a go. Yeah. Literally. And a picture of the work just to show that, it was
you can do it.
And I went round the closest 10 farms to where I live. Yeah. Just put it through the door. Yeah. I didn't know any of them. Because we'd moved by then. I'd moved somewhere I didn't really know anyone. So I just put them round the door. And I got like 3 or 4 people call me off that. and I honestly don't think I've ever sort of advertised again because
really you just had to work, yeah.
Because someone, you do a half decent job. Someone will always recommend
yeah,
something else,
yeah.
and you obviously get better,
yeah,
and improve,
yeah.
And if you're into it, if it's not just a sort of job, if you're actually interested in it, you improve that much quicker.
Yes,
because you're sort of you do it, you're reflecting on what you've done, and so gotten better and better, I suppose. I hope.
So are you using the stone that's already collapsed, or are you getting stuff in?
Yeah, if you're doing like gapping, so like wall gaps, you're just out on a walk, someone's out there, they see gaps everywhere.
Yeah.
Like I think I saw this thing recently, like estimated half the walls in this country. There's about, they estimated, someone did some numbers, I don't know how they did it. They said about 70,000 miles of dry stone walls, and half of them were not stop-proof. They were in a bad state of repair. And they were like, oh yeah, it cost like £3 billion to repair. So it'll never happen. No. The era of all walls being because we've got barbed wire fences.
Yeah.
But there's lots and lots of gaps out there. So if you're getting started in it, and even people vastly experienced, some of the best wallers I know still do gapping because it's bread and butter work. It's paid work, and it's good work, and it's enjoyable, and it keeps you tied to the foundation
of it. Because there's so many different styles throughout the whole country, though, isn't there?
Yeah,
you go down to Cornwall, and they've got it sort of built in. They put soil in them, don't they? I mean, many a time I've took out a wing mirror down Cornwall, just thinking it was a dry stone wall. I thought I'll be all right. There's a living, like the whole environment living in it, because there's all sorts growing in it. There's the whole hedgerows.
That's like a heavy regional style down there. And my mate Dave, who lives down there, he does that, and he's quite good at it. And like the way that they use the stones a bit
differently, isn't it?
And like even the Cotswolds, people think southeast not got a lot. But that's a whole regional style of walling. But obviously, like throughout the north, Yorkshire and everything.
It's mental.
But in Cumbria, we're quite lucky. I think as a waller, it's a really good place to work because you've got so many different types of stone.
Yeah.
So for me, like where I live now, near Windermere, like in the lakes, within an hour, I can be at like half a dozen or more very, very different types of stone, which all make for a different kind of wall.
Yeah.
And if you want, going back to the sort of gapping thing, I think the best wallers can turn their hand to all different circumstances. Just a rough field gap, but they'll make it real good job of repairing it. Or someone's fancy, Chelsea Flower Show, the neatest thing ever. You know what I mean? They can turn their hand to it all. And the best walls I know, that's what they do.
Yeah.
But like, you don't even have to be the best of the best. If you're just half decent at walling in this county, you will never be short of work. If someone says to me they're short of work, I'm like, why? What's going on? What are you not
doing?
You can't turn for gaps. And if nothing else, you can just fill your day with doing repairs.
So when you're running, are you looking for work?
Oh, running, driving, anything. You can't.
I'll give it up.
You spend your whole life looking at walls.
I bet you do.
And most, obviously, it's a bit of a bit snarky, but you're like, oh, that's rubbish.
That's great.
But then sometimes you see one, you think,
whoa,
that one is sharp, and then you want to know. You're like, who did that?
Yeah.
And you go around to mates, you're like, oh, do you know who did that? Oh, right. Oh, it's him. Yeah. So someone will know.
Yeah.
There's not that many ones. You know what I mean? It's a niche.
I suppose it's a bit like running, isn't it? There won't be. I suppose it's like farriers, and there's only certain. Sort of amount of people that do them particular jobs,
and
isn't
people, you get to know.
You get to know everyone.
Yeah. And what's nice about it is because there is so much work, really, or there should be. It's not massively competitive.
No,
I never feel that way anyway. I never feel like someone's on my patch.
You're not treading on someone's toes.
It's more like, I've got a big job. Can you come and give us a hand? And people do help each other out. On like self-employed. Pretty much everyone's self-employed. Sometimes there's like a bit of a crew. Who all work for one.
Just get a job and split it or whatever.
But I mean, at least a lot of the wars I know, it's just basically them and they team up for projects.
Because I mean, it is you are carrying on. Because I was chatting to a guy, and he said, "Oh, he'll be fantastic." He says because he's carrying on that old tradition that it's jobs like yours and Thatcher's and they're getting lost.
Well, they would get lost, but I don't think they will because the interest is there. The interest is there, and I get people, like I'm not that old, but young people like my age, younger than me, who are interested and they want to get into those things. Yeah,
I mean that's really good, isn't it? Yeah,
and it is a good job because. Like this is the thing. So I did have a lad out, recently, and I thought, he's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Just based off one day,
then
you
it
can kind of
rain.
tell. Yeah, the weather. I said, "Will you come back tomorrow?" He's like, I was like, "All right," because you forget that it is kind of a hard job.
It is, yeah.
It is physically tiring, and you're out in the weathers and that, but it's not it's very satisfying. People say, oh, two things people say. The first thing people say is, oh, it's just like a jigsaw. That does my head in. Everyone I know wants to just smack their head against the wall when they hear that. Because like, oh, you just hear it so much. Kind of yes, kind of no. Like, a jigsaw only goes together one way. Walls can go together one way. Anyway, the second thing people say is, oh, it must be very satisfying. And they're right.
Yeah,
it's very satisfying.
I bet.
Like, when I get home from a day's work, I'm tired.
Yeah.
But physically tired.
Yeah.
I sit down, I'm like, oh, I'm tired because I've done something.
Yeah.
I'm not tired because I'm stressed.
No.
Because people come home from a day at the office.
Oh, yeah,
they're knackered.
But they're mentally tired, aren't they?
Because they're exhausted.
Yeah.
Mentally exhausted.
And which is worse, a lot worse.
So much worse.
I'd much rather be physically knackered, but sort of created something during my day's work.
At the end of the day, you step back, you can see what you did. What did you do today?
Yeah,
I did that.
exactly.
If someone, there's lots of important jobs in the world that rely on sending and receiving emails. But at the end of the day, you say, what did you do? They're like,
I don't know. I don't know.
So it is very satisfying,
and it's part of a sort of heritage as well, isn't it? And I would say British heritage, but it's a mankind heritage, isn't it?
It's the most.
It's one of the first things man ever started to do, wasn't it? To sort of create stone fortifications to keep livestock in. As soon as we started,
100%.
Stop becoming hunter-gatherers and became farmers.
At the most fundamental level, what do birds do? They make nests. They take materials and they build a thing.
Yeah.
Humans take materials, wood, stone, make stuff.
That's all we've.
Since forever.
Yeah.
So look at in like Scarborough in the Orkney Islands. Orkney Islands.
They've dated. Yeah, they've dated.
Thousands of years old.
Yeah.
And like in Brox in Ireland or something, burial mounds, thousands of years old. Well, the pyramids.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There are really old mortar stuff as well, like the Romans were using mortar thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
But using it as a material, it's an obvious material.
Because what's the sort of ages would you say of the lakes? Sort of stone walls.
It varies. Some of them are hundreds of years old for sure. But obviously, because they're infinitely repairable,
it's difficult.
It might have been a wall there for like 1,000 years.
Yeah.
But it isn't that
wall
version of it.
Yeah.
It's come down and been put back up and stuff. But there are ones that will have been there, untouched, standing for hundreds of years, 300 or 400 years.
I mean, when you look at it, because I do a lot of fell walking now, especially when my knees are better.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking at it, and I'm just looking all at the scenery and everything else. But I'm always looking, and you see them walls way up. And you think, man, they'll have physically took that up by hand, which you probably still do now, don't you? Or do you ever?
Yeah, I mean, if you've got to take a bunch of stone, so the way that they did it, right? So all those walls that you see that are, if they're straight lining up the fell, they are actually, that's one of the easiest ways to date those walls. Because it's more about the context. If you just go and look at it, there's certain clues, but the context will give you an age.
Yeah.
Those walls all date from the early 1800s.
Right.
So they're all a couple of hundred years old.
Yeah,
so pretty old.
Yeah.
But the reason that you know that is because they really are to do with enclosure. There's all these parliamentary acts at the time where basically wealthy landowners who were in Parliament, they'd pass a bill to say, we're going to get rid of this common land, we're going to parcel it up and everyone gets their patch.
Yeah. And
part of the deal is you can only own that land if you can enclose it. They didn't have barbed fences at the time, so the enclosing meant walling. And slightly sadly with those walls, it's kind of one of those things where all this poorer landowners, the poorer folk farming there, couldn't afford to wall it. So that's where it's a bit of a land grab. I can afford 5 lads to go and wall it. And it's part of the sort of professionalisation of walling because, people just be farmers doing it themselves, clearing the land, all that. And at that point, you needed a gang. You needed a gang to go up there now and wall it. And they would often, if you look up the side of a slope like that, you might notice little pockets either side where they're basically just quarrying out the stone off the fell side as they go up. So obviously, if you're walling here, you just quarry slightly above it, so you don't have to drag stone uphill. Pull it down a small bit.
So there was a method in the madness then.
And that all goes in the wall, and then that's how you end up with that. Yeah, you're going to get, bloody hell, why have they gone up the crag with that straight line? Was if you look at down in the valley bottom, round a village, like little intakes and things, very wiggly wall. It goes this way and that way to go over a boulder and stuff. Those are the oldest ones.
Those are the oldest ones. And ones with trees growing in them. They're awesome, aren't they? You see a big old oak tree, and the stone, it's actually the stone has the oak tree's grown into the stone, hasn't it?
It's funny from a waller's perspective, because you see a tree, you're like, because a tree will wreck a wall. Like, it will always beat the wall.
Yeah, of course.
But it looks lovely. Yeah, it's lovely. And you do get people who obviously they want you to repair their wall. Not a farmer, but at someone's garden. Can you go round the tree? Yeah, fine. Disclaimer though,
it will wreck you.
You know what I mean? You build a beautiful wall within some years. Like, if I go and do a bit of wall and there's nothing wrong with the setting, it should be there in 100 years. It should be.
Yeah.
And it's an odd job in that sense that I won't know if I've done a good job until I retire, basically. And then I'll be like, oh, maybe I did half decent job, because it's been there for like 50 years. But if you're building on like wet ground, tree roots, things like that, that obviously drastically reduces the age range that they can have.
So when I'm walking, if I see a big old boulder that's been there since the Ice Age, and the wall's been built, incorporated then that's going to be an old wall.
Potentially, because those straight line ones, that was drawn on a map, and then they were told to go out and build that wall.
Grab the land.
Yeah, whereas if it's sort of wiggling around and going over that was probably built before that.
So most valley...
Yeah, right in the bottom. If you're in the Dun Valley or something like that, and you're seeing, especially, another indicator that it's definitely a really old wall, is that they're consumption walls. So what that means is, a standard wall that I would build now, it starts off maybe a metre thick at the bottom, and it tapers up a bit, because they're all slightly tapered. It's called batter. Batter on it. But in places like some of those valleys, you'll see walls that are just vastly thick. It's thicker than this caravan. Twice as thick. And you think, why? It's purely somewhere to put the stone.
Right.
They're clearing the field. It's two birds with one stone. Not mixed metaphors, but you look at the field and you think, oh, it's quite a nice green paddock, and then you look at the fell side next to it and it's rough as all hell. Well, that field used to be like that fell side.
Right.
They've picked up all those stones out of that field, and they need somewhere to put it, so they just put it in the wall. Right. So they build these massive fat walls, consumption walls, as that purpose. And they are, some of them still pretty awesome walls. Pretty impressive. And the amount of time in them is
I can imagine.
But the walls that you see that have certain standard features, that goes, that dates from a sort of, at least the last 200 years, when there's a bit more standardised practice. Things like through stones. So if you're out, you're looking up the line of the wall, and you see halfway up there's these stones sticking out. In a row. They span both sides of the wall, so they're sticking out both sides. Wow. That goes all the way through, and it's basically tying the two sides of the wall together, because a freestanding rest wall has two sort of faces with heart impact in the middle, small stuff packed in the middle, and those throughs tie it all together.
Right.
And they're very, very effective, because a lot of times when you see a gap, it's come down, and where's it stopped?
At the throughs. Right.
So very much now, if I'm building any wall, and I possibly can, I've got access to them, throughs in. Throughs in. But sometimes you go and repair one that doesn't have any throughs. Maybe it just didn't have any, but maybe it's really old. And it predates that kind of standardised practice.
So are you using a quad bike to get up to places and that as well nowadays, or not?
I tend to walk in, because running that, I like it, I enjoy it. So if it's a long, if it's a bit of a hike up the fell, I'm very happy to do that.
That's usually for gapping though, is it? Or not? Because surely
to
get your gear up there, it's not like you get a helicopter to drop a shitload.
If you're building a new wall, then you'll need some sort of access.
But I bet you very rarely go stupidly high.
There's not new walls being built straight up
is there anymore.
If it's a new wall, it'll be someone's garden or something like that. And in that case, the quantity of stone needed, it looks vastly more when it's in a pile. Because a wall's quite tight. And the better wall you are, the tighter it is. Really. So the amount of stone you get delivered, you think, bloody hell. With a pickup, you'd be there for weeks.
Really?
So you get it delivered, big wagon. Big wagon comes along.
What, just dumps it?
Dumps it, massive amount. And you have to sort it and process it. And that's obviously, in that sense, new walls can be more time consuming, because you've got to turn that stone into one stone you want to use. Whereas if it's a gap and it's all field stone, you don't really want to be shaping that into neat rectangular shape.
No,
just use it as it is. If it's a massive lump, like you see in like the Dun or Borrowdale, something like that, big lump, use it as it is, because you'd be there. Some stone with a hammer, it's like you're just there all day. It's pointless.
Because what stones have we got around here? Obviously around here we've got predominantly sandstone.
Here, north, especially from the north here, Lazenby and something. It's this red sandstone,
which is fairly sort of soft, isn't it, and easy to.
It is if you go to some extent. There's very interestingly, I found when I was living and working here, there was, like, from where I lived, there was two farms, 10 minutes away in either direction. And on one of them, the stone, which I believe came out of like Lazenby Quarry, quarried out, hard.
Yeah.
Red sandstone, but
hard, right?
And difficult to actually get looking neat.
Right.
Even though it sort of started rectangular. You just want to make a small change, very difficult.
Right.
The other farm, so soft.
Really?
Like butter. I could almost split it with my hand.
Bloody hell.
And so soft that you thought, this is actually not
going to be
great for longevity. Not really very strong, but dead easy. Dead easy to use.
Yeah.
But not a massive amount in the middle. It was like one or the other. So red sandstones, there's all sorts of different types of, we're not geologists, but you do get a certain sense of different types of stones. But like, you say limestone, there's lots of different types. You say sandstone, there's lots of different types. And so, if I go down and wall in Todmorden, it's a very different type of stone. That I might get somewhere else.
It's funny because when we go down, because I go down to, I've discovered Arnside about a year, 18 months ago, and it's beautiful, and Arnside and Art and all the walks around there. And the stone that you're walking on, I'm guessing it's limestone, isn't it? And it's so different to, when you're walking in the Borrowdale or down Patterdale. It's completely different stone.
Different, like Shap is, by the time you get to Shap, you're on limestone. You're on limestone.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. But it's slightly different.
Right.
Slightly different type of limestone.
Because there's no real granite here, is there? Or?
No, not that you would think of like the sort of like basalt, dead hard
rock hard stuff.
Not as much.
No.
But yeah, I've got a couple of mates been doing a lot of walnut outside, and that's all I'm saying. But like what I started on around Coniston and everything, I sort of call it slate, but it's not slate you're like thinking thin shards. It's like Silurian slate. Like people call it bluestone, Winston.
Right. Yeah.
It's like big angular lumps.
Yeah.
Very difficult to use a hammer on that because you hit it there, it splits there. Yeah. Very unpredictable. So it's best to just use as is. And also it like shatters into little bits. But that stuff, like, I've got a fondness for that stuff because that's what I started on.
Right.
And like around the other side of Kendal, that's
completely different stuff to Honister slate.
Yeah.
Or not.
So the stuff that they'll be
because that's like
a
bluey green.
It's very similar.
Yeah.
But like obviously Skidder slates and that sort of North Lake stuff does tend to be a lot thinner.
Yeah.
It does tend to be more like a roofing slate that you think of.
Yeah.
As thin shards.
Yeah.
And in somewhere like Borrowdale, they've got really nice walls that are a mix of basically the slates and the sort of cobbles, like basically river. Field stone, and they'd layer it up.
Right.
Because it's actually a really nice look to have, thin stuff, big stuff, and the thin stuff is balancing the levels. Because when you go up, you want to be crossing joints.
Right.
Kind of like brick. Brick is a dirty word to a wall, but imagine bricks. You have one on top of two, and then two on top of one, and that
it adds that.
Locked in.
Strength. Yeah.
And when you're using stone, you still want it to be especially want it to be locked in.
Yeah.
So you're trying to cover those joints, and it's not always as simple as one, two, different shapes, different sizes.
Yeah.
But that's what's nice if you've got a mix. Like the job I was just on recently, it was a real mix of different types of stone, which was lovely because you'd get into a bit of a tight spot. You'd think, oh damn, I've done that. And then you'd solve it with a different type of stone. It would come in just slightly.
Yeah. So, and was that for a customer? Was that obviously for a customer? But was that like not a wall, a private sort of jobby?
Yeah. That was down near Crosby Garrett.
So I can imagine they just wanted to look as nice and quirky and different as possible, didn't they?
Yeah, so it's just an interesting spot because in the lake's got such mixed geology. There are certain places where basically it meets.
Right.
And then you obviously got basically the same farm or same bit of land. It has got two different
types of rock. Yeah.
And because of the process of glaciation, stuff gets moved. Stuff gets moved, kind of like, wait, why is it doing here? But it's been shifted along, and then it's just popped up in the field. So in that spot, like, I'm not an expert on the geology there, so I'm not entirely sure what was going on. But he hadn't brought it in from a quarry. He was just picking stuff out of the field, and he had some limestones and sandstone and a few odd bits of other stuff.
Other bits and bobs.
But the contrasting colours and shapes and everything.
Yeah, but it looks really good.
Yeah, it really joins out. Like,
and then when it gets wet, it changes again, doesn't it?
Yeah. The colours really pop out. And obviously, as it gets older, it weathers in, so it blends in a bit. But when it's new, and sometimes people, they just want their wall to look really old immediately.
Yeah.
Like, no, enjoy it when it looks new. And obviously from a waller, you look at someone else's work, you're like, that's
class.
You know what I mean? That's like top quality bit of work.
So you really enjoy what you do. Really enjoy.
Yeah, it's great.
What would you have done, do you think, if you hadn't kind of stumbled into that?
Well, that's a good question.
Do you think you would have been an outdoorsy?
Yeah.
I don't know, like
My dad was a teacher, like outdoor studies.
Oh right,
stuff,
yeah.
You know,
So do you think you might have gone down outward boundsy type route?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, and I definitely enjoyed all that stuff.
You wouldn't have been a 9 to 5 suit and.
I don't think
suit and tie. No.
I think because what's interesting about it is like I did well at school and everything, and people always tell you, oh, you know, you're quite switched on, you know, you like reading, I love reading and all this kind of stuff, and they say, oh, you should go and do a job that's like that. But a lot of jobs where they're paying you for your mind, they're telling you what to think. They say, oh, hello Bobby, right, what you're going to think about today is this. And you sit there and think about what they want. Whereas in my job, they're paying me for my hands, so they don't care what I think about. So they just say, all right, do that, and I can think, and I can listen to podcasts. This is why I'm on. This is why I'm here. It's because I listen to so many podcasts. Because I'm just, you know, most of the time I work by myself, so I'm there with my thoughts. And just sort of mull things over. And
well, that's what I'm liking during the day. Even though I'm kind of meeting people, you know, on a daily. But then when I'm in between customers. I'm in my own world. I'm devising podcasts. I'm sorting out what I'm going to say to people. I'm going through things. I'm listening to things. It's all. I suppose some people might say it's not really daydreaming. I'm just, I don't know, just enjoying my life, and it's just kind of, you know.
And I think that for someone, you know. I've got like an active mind, and sometimes it's overactive. You know what I mean? You get overwhelmed with stuff. It's a good job for just blocking, like I said, with the running as well. They're quite similar in terms of what you get. I'm just in the zone. I'm just there for 8 hours. I'm not even thinking about.
I bet it's quite meditative, like you said, as well, isn't it?
Oh, 100% is.
Because it's like, and then you've got that.
You get into the rhythm with it.
So you've got into the rhythm. You've got the stone, blah blah blah, and then at the end of it, it's
stand back and it's
done, isn't it? It's fantastic.
Right. Yeah, but I think like. I'm really interested in the stone and stuff as well, but the whole circumstances of it, like I love being self-employed and the freedom of that. I can take a day off here and there. You know, just everything about it really, the whole package, it definitely suits me. And I definitely wouldn't have seen that coming, I think, if you'd asked me when I was like 13 or something. I wouldn't have said that.
No.
Because I was a very sort of bookish child. You know what I mean? And I still love all that stuff. I still enjoy academic interests. But I don't necessarily
want to do it
for work.
Do you think you'll do this as long as you physically can?
That's an interesting question. I was working with a fella called Jerry the other day. He's an old wall. He's like late 60s. He's basically sort of half retired. Kind of looking that way. And you know, got to a certain time of day, he's like, "Oh, I'm ready for a break." I was like, "We've barely started." Jerry. He's like, "When you've been doing it for 40 years, you don't want a break now." And I said to him jokingly, I was like, "I'm not going to do it in 40 years." And I thought, well, I don't know actually. I don't know. I think that I wouldn't want to get to the point where I felt like it was hurting. You know what I mean? Like hurting physically to get out of bed. And I know some wallers who are just so, it's their life, and they just do it even though it hurts. And I don't think I'd want to be there. But right now, it feels good. You know what I mean? So
but I think it's the sort of job as well, because you're so physically active, and obviously combined with the running as well, then it's obviously going to give you that longevity that you probably might not have had if you'd got an office job.
No, 100%.
You know, because you're constantly, your whole body and your mind, and I think your mind more than anything needs to be worked, doesn't it? It's just going to keep you going and going and going. So barring a terrible accident, which fingers crossed will never happen, you know, it's the sort of thing you could do well into your, you know, and even if you wanted to just cherry pick. The weather days.
No, that's what Jerry does. He says, I called him up and I said, "Oh, what time are you out there tomorrow, Jerry?" And he says, "Well, you know, probably about 9:45." He says. And I was like, "Yeah, all right, that sounds. You know, we finish about 4, so it's nice doing it. I only do occasionally with it." But, so.
But it's nice to be in that position.
Yeah, and he didn't work today because of wet weather. So that's fine.
So it'd be classic, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
you know,
brilliant. Plough on a bit more.
But then you can. By then you can be sitting back writing your memoirs.
Yeah, that's it.
This is the Stonewalling 101.
Well, this is exactly what Joe's done. He wrote a book.
Did he?
Yeah, that's what he did. Yeah,
that's brilliant.
That's another person. Is someone for you to have watched it? It's a very interesting life story. Yeah, I guess I'll save it in case you want him on.
Turns up,
But yeah,
we'll get his contact.
Serious.
Do you live locally?
He's more like he's down Ulverston.
Is he?
He's down Ulverston. But this book he wrote, like it's a bit of it's quite a heart-rending life story.
Really?
And stonewalling helped him deal with it more.
Oh,
so
excellent.
It's really good. But might have him on. So
Yeah,
I'll let him tell. He'll tell it better than me. Yeah.
See if you can twist his arm to come on. That'd be good. That'd be good. So as well, music. What do you listen to while when you're on, along with podcasts? Because Little Bird tells me you also play the drums as well.
I do, yeah.
Do you still play a bit or not?
I do play a bit, yeah.
Do you?
Not really in bands at the minute, but just the other day, a mate of mine from school, day before yesterday, he came round, I hadn't seen him for a bit, and we started jamming, because I had got a little keyboard. He's a piano player, and we just started.
Have you got a kit still at home? Have you?
So for a while I didn't have one, but I've got space now since we moved there.
Acoustic or electric?
Acoustic.
Oh, excellent.
So I've warned the neighbours, go around, I'm sorry, mate.
Sorry, I'm a drummer.
You must come and tell me. And then the other day, with me and my mate, it was about 10 o'clock, I was like, oh shit, we should probably stop
down
now.
a bit.
Smacking on it. But I listen to a lot of different stuff, and I know everyone kind of says that, and it's one of the classic questions, like, what do you listen to? Everyone freezes doing it.
I think though, if you are a musician, and I know people say drummers are musicians, we are musicians.
What's the difference between a drummer and a drum machine? You only have to tell a drum machine what to do once.
It's true.
I think my granddad told me that one or something like that.
So, what was I going to say?
Yeah, you're a musician, you do...
about music.
Yeah.
So, sweeping generalisation, but if you're not a musician, chances are you'll just listen to what's in vogue at that time, perhaps.
You won't go...
You won't go, So, whereas we will hear something, it piques our interest, and especially now with Spotify, I don't know if you're on Spotify or anything, but now it's kind of like, I'll listen to one thing, whoa, because it makes playlists for you, doesn't it?
Yeah, sure.
And then it's like, boom, 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 I'm off down so many different rabbit holes.
Like, the internet's incredible for finding new music.
Isn't it?
Like, there's a lot of downsides to it, but it's incredible for finding music.
And this as well, on my phone, so it'll... I don't know if yours has got the same capability, but it tells you what's playing. So you'll be watching something on telly, and I think, it's like a cover, but done slightly differently. I think, that's amazing, and then it tells you who it is on there. And then I'm straight on Spotify, saving it, and it's kind of like, and you're listening to it.
Yeah. No, I love making playlists. That's like if someone knows that they've reached my friendship bar because I'll make them a playlist. Mixtape style, like, oh yeah, you'll like this. I don't really care if they like it or not. It's like I find it really fun to mash them together. But I think when you're a teenager, I think like early teens, usually people are into music. They find a genre that they're really passionate about, and maybe it's a bit identity forming that. Yeah. And then as you go on, year on year, you find other stuff, and you don't typically. Well, at least I never left the old stuff. I just added more and more. You just add more and more layers. So by the time you're in your late 20s, you just listen to a bit of everything. And
so you've got that nucleus that is your go-to.
When I listened to like punk and rock stuff when I was like a teenager and stuff like that, and then got a bit into metal stuff, and then there was like a bit of a hip hop sort of and then just expanded out, and now it's like, recent years I guess there's some more like jazz stuff and some more like instrumental electronic stuff. But it's
stuff you probably wouldn't have been.
No, I wouldn't.
Like you said earlier, if someone had told you when you were 13 you were going to be a water.
No.
If someone had told you at 13 you were going to be listening to whatever classical stuff or whatever, you'd have said no chance. But like you say, it just adds on to your
and if you're someone who's
life.
Interested in things generally, I think there's some people who are just find the world interesting. You know what I mean? And so, like, when someone says to me they're into music, but there's a certain genre, like, I hate it altogether. Just write off the entire genre. There's got to be something there. Like there's a whole swathe of humanity who enjoys this type of music. And you can't find anything to like
one
about
little
there must be
iota.
something
It's
there.
got it,
So there's good stuff there.
And it's not like you say, it's not everybody's cup of tea.
No.
But I wouldn't dismiss it outright.
No, exactly.
I'll listen to it. And there will be certain things, certain styles and tracks and whatever that will resonate with you. Bloody hell, that is actually
it might be
really
the one
good.
that stands out. And like you say, sometimes you find something new and you're excited because you think, this is going to open a whole new world. But actually, it turns out it's just that one song. You don't like any of the rest of it. You just like that one song. But that's fine. That's fine.
It's like, I think this morning I put on, I thought, for some reason I really wanted to listen to some Red Hot Chili Peppers. So I thought, I'll listen to some early stuff because I got a lot of their early CDs. I thought I'll put some on. And then it was like, I only actually wanted to listen to one song. And it was kind of like, it was, the rest of the album didn't really... I wasn't in that mood, do you know what I mean?
I think it's very interesting as a generational thing that, not to point out that we're of a slightly different generation, but I think we are. But I think that people who grew up with records and basically the way they listened to music was in a collection that's been given to them. Here's your album. They'll talk about the album. This is the album that really made an impact. Whereas I think when I was growing up, it was already, there was already a lot of mashing it, and a lot of like the internet come along, and people would just listen to the one song or the other song and make a mix. Yeah. So they wouldn't even necessarily know the name of the album. No. You know what I mean? Yeah. Which I think is a bit of a different.
It's a bit like now. You see, sometimes because exactly that. So an album for me, I can specific albums. Yeah. I know exactly what's coming. Yeah. Because you listen, you get the record. And you could
tell me the names of the songs. Yeah. You've looked at
them. You know everything about it. Yeah. And it's kind of like, then if someone happens to put shuffle on Spotify, so then you're in a song and it starts the first track, nobody, you think, right, and then you're getting ready to go into the next song, and it's like the 8th song on the album. It's like, what's going on?
Interestingly, I think I can't remember who it was recently, but there was some artist actually got, I don't know if it's Spotify, but they basically got them to take away the shuffle button, because they said, no, I've put out the album in the order I want, and I like, and it's a piece of art that is a collective piece of art, and they didn't want it to be shuffled. And I thought, that's kind of interesting. I can respect that. Like, as much as maybe I just want to go and listen to one song, if I want to listen to the whole album, I probably would listen in order, because, I mean, they do some, like, I'm thinking about the start of Breathe by Pink Floyd, where you can hear the last bit of the last song fading in, and so as soon as you start listening to that song, you know what came before it, because they bleed together. And that used to be more of a thing, I think, where the album would flow between them. Yeah. Whereas now I think that's quite unusual, because they want it to be.
It's just that soundbite in it, and that's it.
That one song.
You click.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but it's just interesting that's like a way that.
But I think as well, though, they were albums back then. They did tell a story, and especially on the bigger bands like Black Sabbath. Yeah. I think it was their Sabotage album, and that was the whole album. Pretty much was all about how the record company had stiffed them, and each track had its own little dig at the record company and the kind of record business as a whole. And if that hadn't been, if that had come out now, it wouldn't have had that same. It would have just been one song, and probably the song wouldn't have been as. What's the word when you're subliminal? It would have been more direct and in your face.
Off each other, one to the next.
It was.
Although interestingly, so one of my favourite bands of recent years, it's called Everything Everything, and they're kind of like a pop band, but it's like art rock kind of influence. It's very interesting to listen to. I can't really describe it perfectly.
I'll have a listen to it.
And you could definitely listen to it and be like, not for me. But at least it's interesting. You won't think, that's boring. You think, it's not my flavour, or it's But their most recent album is kind of like that. It's a bit of a concept album. It's all about. It's basically just a big, different negative aspects of capitalism. You know what I mean? What have we come to? And his lyric writing is very like. It's really striking.
Is it?
Certain phrases pop out of you. You're like, oh man, that's it's a bit strong flavour. But sometimes you're like enjoying the musicianship, and then the lyrics are a bit jumping out.
Do they completely contrast sometimes?
Not necessarily contrast, but they're just like, I find that I hear them. I hear the words. Whereas a lot of music, I just let it flow.
I bet that's exactly what he wanted, though, isn't it?
He does. He does. And because he's got thoughts. You know what I mean?
To think.
And they're all a bit. It's not straightforward, so you're like, what does that phrase mean? What's he on about there? But you can go and look it up and research and think about it, and like you can see the whole critique. But I find that's at least it's interesting. And there's another band called King Garbage.
Right.
It's a couple of guys from America, and like they've got no real following or traction or anything. No, you can find them. Dead interesting as well. Like the guy who's singing, he's a singer and drummer, and I think I enjoy his drumming because it's like wacky, and you're like, whoa.
Are they a bit royal bloody, or?
No. It's like I don't know how I would describe it. It's very it's definitely got like a hip hop influence. The beats are very like the smack. And a bit what would I say? It's not straightforward.
But are they a bit like that? They're a bit kind of out there, a bit quirky. You can't really pigeonhole them.
No, I think that's a good thing, though.
You know, if someone said to you, there's a few bands. There's like. Jane's Addiction, Primus, early Chili Peppers-ish, and there were bands that you couldn't.
It's a bit of a mix of things.
They were all that a genre, but naming it, you got absolutely no chance.
That's good, Like I I really place value on the recommendations that people give me. So if someone gives me a recommendation that turns out really good, I'm like, oh, that person, I need to listen to them.
Yeah.
So if someone just throws something out there, I'm like, it's fine, don't tell me about it.
Yeah.
I'll go and find it, and then I'll know.
Yeah.
And I think with music, it's good for that. It's like...
I think music is such a... I mean, it's obviously a big part of your life, and it's. I could not live without it.
No.
It's like...
And if I could give you the experience of music by talking to you about it, it wouldn't be music, would it? Because I'd just tell you about it and you wouldn't have to listen to it.
No,
the reason I can't describe it is because you have to listen.
You've got to listen to it. And hopefully you'll have that same resonation, if that is a word, with you as it does with... But it's I love it. The way that, songs can just lift you right up it, can't they? But then at the same point, they can
100%,
drag you right down to the bottom,
and also,
can't they? Just take you back to...
They can let you wallow in emotion as well.
Yeah.
Positive or negative.
Yeah.
When you're feeling just on top of the world and you put something on that makes you feel that way.
Yeah.
You're just
it just amplifies it even more, doesn't it?
Exactly.
And your frequency just goes through the roof, doesn't it?
And you're feeling melancholic. And
you
just want to just wallow
in a bit of self-pity, don't you?
Yeah. So when something really sad's happening, you're just like, I'm just going to be sad for a bit. That's fine.
Yeah.
And that music gives you the space to
just do it. Yeah.
And I think that's wonderful. And it's like I've got fortunate to have friends of mine that play. Like my friend Holly is Holly and the Reavers.
Yeah.
Check them out. Folk trio, really really cool.
Oh, excellent.
And like we were in band at school.
Yeah.
And she's gone to the next level.
Has she?
Really awesome. Yeah. And they like tour around and stuff. In fact, they'll be playing in Staveley later at the month at the folk club there. They're like, they're very much, the thing about folk music is it's very much a bit of a scene, you know what I mean?
Well, it is.
People are in it.
You see, I was supposed to, there's a guy called Mike.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't remember his second name. But he's called Briar and Bramble. Have you come across him?
I know barely anything about folk. If Holly was here, she'd know him. I know him. Yeah, she would know him.
Well, Mike, he was there's a thing I go to called Plug and Play. It's like open mic nights every... The first Sunday of every month that Penrith play it. It stops in May for the summer. Right. But so Mike was on there a couple of years ago. It was post-COVID. Yeah. So we all had to sort of be sitting in the actual players bit, because where it is normally, it's just in the bar. They put a little sort of stage up, little PA system. People just turn up. 9 times out of 10, it's a bit folky, just acoustic guitars. But you see some amazing stuff there. So anyway, Mike had turned up with his band Briar and Bramble. I think it's him and his... Is it your wife, girlfriend? I'm not sure. Partner? Could just be a musician friend. But anyway. And he has this uncanny knack. He knows... He lives down Arnside way, I think. Yeah. Or... It's a place over the water, Grange. Yeah. He lives down that neck of the woods somewhere. Yeah. But...
I'm sure Holly will know.
Is she bound to? Especially in that same genre. But... he's got this knack, and he knows all of these crazy folklore things from Cumbria.
Oh, yeah.
And he turns them into these amazing songs.
Yeah.
And he was supposed to be on a couple of weeks ago, but he'd come down with allergy, so he's coming back on.
Right, coming back.
And I think they're bringing some instruments with them.
Yeah. No, that's what's cool about folk music. Like, the storytelling.
It's
because that's what it is. It's a vessel for, and Holly, like they do, the three of them, it's good. But
I love the name, Holly and Reavers. You see, that's what another thing, when I first moved up here, because you can obviously tell from the accent, I'm not from around these parts. So I'd never heard of the Reavers.
No.
And it was kind of like, how? Yeah. How does the world not know about the Reavers? It's kind of like they're insane. I don't know if this is true or not, but someone had told me that the word bereaved comes from the word the Reavers.
Yeah, I think I've heard that. Yeah. That makes sense, doesn't it?
And that's like now a global term that came from these outlaw crazy.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what I'm really looking for is a historian to come and tell me all about the Reavers to sit there.
Yeah.
So because I know now kind of Peaky Blinders has kind of made Birmingham a more attractive place, hasn't it? And people are getting into that. But I'm sure the Reavers could be a television show or a film.
Yeah.
It's just
I mean, that's what's amazing about this country. Like, and I think I appreciate more like having lived abroad and come back. Like the layers and layers of history.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, you can't move without for kicking some ancient thing that's got like an entire book's worth of history associated with it. Like, it's a long leg stone circle. Just live just around, and it's like this ancient monument.
Well, literally, just down the road, about 200 yards away from my house, there's a plague stone.
Right.
So it's this big old stone, right, that's been hollowed out. And apparently there was one on either side of the town. So there was one at Emont Bridge and one going out on the A6 towards Plumpton. And by all accounts, they used to leave food. People from from the villages used to leave food and stuff in the plague stone. And then people from town would go and collect it, so then there wouldn't be.
That's like original COVID measures, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like,
that's right.
The understanding of new bit of separation.
And it's literally just at the end of this road, and I pass it every single day, and it's like nobody.
Well, it's even, I mean,
it's used as a dustbin now, basically.
I was chatting to my mate from Canada the other day, and he's like, "Oh, tell me about the house we moved into." I said, "Well, to start with, it's older than your country, I mean, like, obviously, there's people living there before like the modern Canada existed, but the layers and layers and layers of history, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, it is amazing.
There's a podcast called. Far inferior to this podcast, of course. But it's got a podcast called Country Stride,
right?
Which is quite good. It's done by a couple of lads, and it's just like history and cultural stuff around Cumbria.
Oh, right,
and
maybe
they get on guests that sort of know about different things and stuff, and that's it's usually got some interesting.
Oh, I'll have to get them lads on.
Yeah.
They'll be good.
Yeah, I think one of them lives around here.
Do they?
Yeah, but
Country Stride. I'll check them out.
Yeah.
Beware, I'm just about to stalk you guys.
Yeah, it's a good one, but no, I love listening to. I mean, I listen to like more podcasts than anyone I know. It's a bit ridiculous, really. It's a ridiculous.
But your job is perfect for it, though, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I love to absorb different bits and bobs from different things.
That's it. You see, I suppose me and you, if we were playing Trivial Pursuit, we'd we'd win as a team. We'd beat anyone, wouldn't we? Because everyone's always said. Because I've always just been a sponge for. Academically, I was useless, absolutely. But I went to school to have fun. I wasn't there to learn. It was just a DOS with my mates. But that was, this was 70s and 80s, so we're talking a long time ago.
Before I was thought of.
Before you were even thought of. So, but I'm not stupid either.
No.
So, and I love reading the same as you. So, and I absorb. Everything, music, stats, facts, little nuggets of information that will never be of any use to anything, but it's just stuff
it does inform your whole view of the world.
It creates, And
I really dislike it, actually, when people do that thing of they're like, there's a certain type of person that's like this and certain like that. Some people are supposed to be plumbers, and some people are supposed to be like professors, and they won't have the same interests. I said, you can do what you want.
Of course,
I can be a waller and read some poetry if I want. That's fine. Or you can be a computer technician and love gardening. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Don't limit yourself to like
to
it's
one
just not
field.
And people do that at school. And I mean, teachers just they want the best for you, but they do tend to try and push you into something that they think will be good for you. But I'm like, no, just like.
Let them expand.
Whatever your job is, that doesn't have to be the end of the line of your interest.
No,
you can, especially because of things like the internet. And I mean, before that, libraries and stuff. But especially, you can look up whatever you want.
Exactly. There's no excuse anymore. The whole universe is there to explore now. Literally on your phone, isn't it? On your fingertips.
That's it.
It's crazy.
And I do find that people come out with. Funny things, people have found something somewhere, and the person you wouldn't expect will come out with something really interesting that they found out.
But it's then a conversation piece, then, isn't it? Because it's like you go, that's interesting because that would also tie in with blah blah blah, and then before you know it, you've off down a rabbit hole. And
I think that I suppose I would encourage this. Yes, there's a lot of people that come out with things, and I just want them to go. Look more in depth at that stuff, you know what I mean? Because I think sometimes it's a bit superficial. The way that when you're on your phone, you see stuff you think that's interesting, and then you move on. And I think that's like the one downside. Obviously, it's amazing. It's amazing what you can find and what you find out about. But it does tend to push you to just move on.
Yes.
And I think go and find that corner of the internet where someone's made this website dedicated. There's a lad who made this website all about Scottish lifting stones.
Right.
which is like,
the big granite.
It's a big stone in the middle of a field. It's been there for 100 years. But you go and try and lift it. It's like original weightlifting.
Yeah, yeah.
And this website, it's just all about that. We've just dedicated so much time to finding about
it. That is niche.
And and like,
but something must have piqued his interest, wasn't it?
Can go and find
and there'll be someone out there that, they probably want to see where the strongmen stones thing originated, and it probably originated there, didn't it? Like most of the Highland Games kind of things.
Scotland and Ireland and like I think Iceland as well.
Yeah.
But,
because the Icelandics always seem to be the big boys, aren't they?
Yeah, big bones.
Must be that fresh air.
I know, yeah.
So, but you've been kind of near in the hemisphere, that neck of the woods, haven't you? I suppose when you were in Canada.
Yeah, I lived in British Columbia for a couple of years.
What took you there?
I just wanted to go.
Oh, did you?
I just wanted to go. Yeah, it was something that I had in mind for a while, because I don't know where originally it came from, but I had this idea. I wanted to learn how to build log cabins.
Right.
Build with wood.
Yeah.
And I had the idea before I started walling, and then I did a bit of walling, and then it just seemed like the timing was good for me and Rose, my partner, to go out there. And they do a good system where, because it's Commonwealth, you can get 2-year working visa.
Right. Relatively easy.
Yeah. It's a couple £100, and you get a bit of a paperwork process, and they just give it to you, and it's not tied to a specific job. They just say, go out there and figure it out.
Have fun.
And that's fantastic. Because then, we just flew in, and I did like a bit of a training course for a few weeks, just sort of intense basics, cover the basics of, here's your chainsaw, here's how you do stuff.
What, you were literally cutting a tree down and then making houses?
Not felling the trees,
right.
Just, so they would all be in, but you would basically a chainsaw is what you use to do the majority of the work on building the log cabin.
Yeah.
I mean,
so they supply the
once you know
the lumber.
You can, obviously, felling trees is not. Some are very difficult and some are very not. So there's trees that I'm happy to fell, and there's ones I'm like, no, you need an arborist for that. But using the logs to make a building.
Yeah.
I did a course, and then I ended up getting a job with a company in a town called Kimberley in the Rocky Mountains. Well, just to the west of the Rocky Mountains.
Oh, awesome!
And worked there for a couple of years, and it was
I bet the
really
scenery
awesome.
was insane.
Yeah,
that was been unbelievable.
So what I said about like the layers of history here. So I'm like, North Americans come to Europe because they're fascinated by the history. Yeah. We go to North America because we want the big landscape. And it is awesome.
I can imagine.
The size of the mountains.
I can imagine.
Like running and stuff, walking, amazing. You go out.
I bet they make our films look like
eagles and
bears and wolves and all mad stuff.
Yeah, it is really.
And it's literally still wildlife, isn't it? It's like, we're lucky if we see a badger and we get excited, or a hedgehog.
No, it's really.
It's like, whoa, there's a hedgehog, and it's like, there's a freaking black bear or a brown bear.
No, you could go out like from town. You could leave town in a certain direction and be walking for like weeks before you got to another road.
Jesus.
Yes, genuinely.
It's that enormous.
Yeah, especially out west.
You can't kind of grasp it, can you? Unless you've been there.
It is vast.
That is insane.
You'd be on Google Maps. You'd be looking at it a little bit and zoom out and out and out and out and out. And it's like there's a town there. It's about an hour and a half between them, and there's nothing in between.
Wow.
Whereas here we'd have a lot. And then a few towns, there'd be 100 villages.
Yeah.
You're constantly
there'd be a house at the very least, wouldn't there?
And so it's a whole different scale, but quite a soft landing culturally, because obviously English speaking, a lot of commonality. So it wasn't like massive culture shock.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting doing the work that I was doing, because that was it was quite like there wasn't a lot of that health and safety. You know what I mean? It was very like. Oh, just jump up on that building, Bobby. Like, climb up there. I'm like, what if I fall off? They're like, well, don't fall off. That'd be a bad... Don't do that. Get your chainsaw out. You bounce it. Like, they'd walk along the logs. It's about that wide. You're just there in your shoes, bricking it. With a chainsaw and trying to, like, do some fine-tuning. Oh, yeah, terrifying, really. But
were you getting paid for that or not?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
No, it was a proper job. But, I learnt a lot, man. I learnt a lot. And there's all different types of projects, but they would... Originally, log cabins, it is a European thing originally.
Right, yeah.
A Scandinavian thing, and Russia and Eastern Europe. And obviously those settlers, when they moved to North America, they took that skill with them.
Yeah, saw all these amazing forests. I thought, can make.
But really, they were a sort of quick and dirty way of building a home.
House,
so they were sort of a sign of poverty, really, to have a log. You couldn't afford milled lumber.
Yeah.
You had to build it out of logs.
Logs, yeah.
Whereas since about the mid 20th century, it's become a sign of luxury. It's flipped completely on its head. So the people that buy log houses now, they're buying vast mansions and paying an arm and a leg.
It's like horses, isn't it? To interrupt you, it's like back in the day, only everyone had horses. Only the rich people had cars. Now only rich people have horses. Everyone's got a car.
It is. But so we'd be typically doing quite big buildings. And obviously trying to adapt the log building techniques to a modern requirements, for example, plumbing and electrical and stuff.
So what's the crack with like the building? Was there such thing as building regs or not?
There's regs. There's regs a bit more loose than they are here. They're a bit more like we'll do what we want.
Were they just smack in the middle of nature?
They'd go all over. So typically, we build them all in the yard. So we had a building yard there, and they'd a massive collection of logs that you could go and pick from when you needed the one you wanted. And then we'd build it all there to an architect's specification. And then dismantle it all, put it on a massive wagon, ship it wherever. So that it could go hours away, go hundreds or thousands of miles away, and get put back up wherever it was going. So some of them, were
so it's just like
in the middle
of nowhere. Massive IKEA.
No, but that's what's really cool about log building is because these big pieces, you put them all together and they sit together because of the way you've notched it. You've carved out the shape of one into the other, and they slot together.
So there's no way of getting it wrong.
It can't wiggle out. But you can just pull them
Pop
off.
It out.
With a crane, you can pull them all off, put them on a wagon, and reassemble it the other way.
Awesome.
So that's kind of cool. I mean, you wouldn't do that with a modern house where it's out because they put all the plumbing in and everything. But like with that, you have to allow for the settling of the building because you're building out of a material that changes. Big logs, especially if you build it when they're a little bit green. Some of these big logs take a long time to completely dry out. And as they do, they shrink. Like your diameter shrinks. Like 3 or 4% sometimes. So you think of a 2-story building, you're talking like a foot. So obviously you've got to allow, and the weight of the building as well. When you put it together, it compresses just for the weight of it. So you have to build it with a mind to it's going to come down. So all your plumbing has to be in the floor. You have to have a flexible loop because the building's going to come down. If you just had fixed pipes, snapped. So everything has to be in a
flexible loop. Do they sit on like a concrete slab or what?
They put them on. You put them on wet foundation, concrete foundation stuff. But those are like when people think of a log cabin, where it's like a mass wall, they're laid on the horizontal. That's what I'm talking about. One other style that we would do is like post and beam, so a bit more like a frame, a log frame. And the log doesn't shrink that way, lengthways. So if you've got an upright post, that won't come down. So that was a good way to get size without a lot of the fat.
But your way of doing it was the classic, how you'd see it on the old westerns and the old frontier lands. That's awesome.
And it's a good skill. Like obviously you could do it with like an axe and a handsaw, just be rough as hell. With a chainsaw and like planers and sanders and things, it allows you to be.
So what do they pack like the insides with and that, and
so
to stop drafts? Is it?
So like the ideal is if you scribe it well, which is it's like a pair of dividers. Pointing at, and you scribe the shape of one onto the other. And if you do it really well and cut it well, there should be almost no gap when it's finished settling, completely tight. But you do still put something in there just. So they'd have like some sort of gasket. So we'd use like a little foam gasket. This is like the modern version. You put like a foam gasket down the sides, and that compresses seal. And in the middle, we'd put some sort of insulation. You could put like sheets, wool, or whatever insulation you want. But back in the day, they wouldn't have done it. They just.
Because I'd imagine the insulation of it. What would they be like? Would they be fairly good?
Yeah, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. I mean, it's not the same as obviously if you've got like big thick wall and masses of solid insulation. But they were totally comparable to the other kind of houses that were getting built out in Canada, which were like they're all wooden houses. Their building culture is a bit different from ours because I think they're a bit more do it quick and replace it. You know what I mean? They put a roof on and I need to redo the roof in 20 years, no problem. Whereas we'd be like, that's a bit, come on, it's a bit more lifestyle out of it. Because we're building with bricks and stuff. Compared to what they had out there, log cabin's pretty good. I don't. There are a couple of companies who do it big time in the UK, like do it. Reasonable sizes. Right. There's a fellow in Scotland called Caledonian Log Homes, who I did a tiny bit of work for a while ago, and he does like a good job with proper sized houses, properly done. That's nice. And there's one down in Wrexham as well.
Right.
But it's not such a big thing here because we don't grow much of the right type of log. People aren't used to the look of it. it's labour intensive, so it's fairly expensive. It's kind of specialist thing.
Yeah.
And also like really wet weather. So I guess wood
it's
rots.
not. Yeah. It's
so
not the best.
You get decades out of it here, but it wouldn't last quite as long as like a lot of places. Well, the coast in Canada is wet, but like throughout the middle of the country, continental climate's dry.
Yeah.
Super cold in winter, like -40, but dry.
But dry. Yeah.
Dry
So
cold.
you were there for 2 years.
Yeah.
So you experienced 2 of their winters.
Yeah.
And were they proper?
Yeah.
10-foot snow drifts.
Yeah, massive amount of snow. Seriously cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, real deal. It was cool. Really good.
Really.
And like the town we were in was like there was like a ski hill there, so we did a lot of skiing. And I got quite into like cross country skiing.
Did you?
And like biathlon as well. Where they do
and shooting.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, I did a bit of that.
Excellent. Because their gun laws are very similar to here, aren't they?
Yeah, they're a lot stricter than the US.
They're not like the US, are they? They're a lot sort of.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it's somewhat easier in here, but like way closer to us.
Yeah.
You can't just like.
But for a sporting thing, it was not a problem.
Yeah. And like .22.
Yeah, there's only be 2 twos, weren't they?
So, but that was good. Like, that was something doing. I've no real interest in shooting guns, but that. You're looking down the scope.
Yeah.
It's so. Your whole world is just in this tiny hole,
literally.
and you're just trying to hit that one thing.
Yeah.
And you're trying to, with the biathlon, the skill of the breathing, right?
Yeah.
The cross-country skiing is like super hard work. It's incredibly hard work.
What's the distances
they burn more
on
calories
those?
than any other sport. Genuinely. Yeah. Like if you look at a chart of like Olympic sports and what uses the most, cross-country skiing
is up there. Is it?
It's like running really fast for a long time.
Yeah.
And so then your breathing's knackered, and then you've got to lie down or stand up, whichever one you're doing, and shoot as soon as you can. So they will come in knackered, breathe under control, take a couple of breaths, and then bang, bang, and you've got 5 shots.
Wow.
So like when you watch, having done it,
and
a
then
tiny bit,
when
and
you
watch
it,
the Olympians,
you think another level.
Oh yeah.
Because like everything, they make it look so easy, don't they?
Because
you think, they're just skiing along. Yeah. That's not that bad.
Yeah, that's it. I know. Yeah, it is. It's pretty hard work, but good fun.
Good fun.
Similar to the running, I think it's a nice way to go on a journey. Skiing. Whereas the downhill skiing is a bit more like an adrenaline thing.
Yeah.
And I do love downhill as well, but it's more like being on a mountain bike. Something like, you really Whereas the cross country, you can look around.
You can enjoying it, aren't you? Yeah. And it's a lot
more. You just slow it down from the really,
from there. Just enjoy it.
Yeah, slow it down.
Just enjoy it. So is that where you dabbled with a bit of ice hockey? Or did you do that in this country?
I did that before, yeah.
Oh, did you?
I actually think that going back to why I went out there, I imagine that might have been one of the things that I thought Canada rather than somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because I already played if it was interesting.
Right, yeah. So where did you do that?
I lived in London for a bit and I played there.
Right.
And in this country...
I think the nearest one to here is Sheffield, I'd imagine, isn't it? Or is the one in Blackburn?
The one I play at now, at the minute, is Dumfries.
I was going to say, apart from Scotland,
And that Dumfries is a really nice little rink. So Dumfries Demons, if you want to play it. Good group of lads. And unfortunately, now I've moved, it's really far. Like, from here, it was about an hour.
Yeah.
Now it's more like nearly to 2. So I don't go every week.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so it's really, in this country, it's very much to do with where the rinks are. And some of them are a bit old and knackered and whatever. But... it has got a long history in this country. Like, it's been played by British people as long as it's been played by anyone.
Really?
Outside of, I suppose, like, ancient forms of it.
I suppose then the pioneers took it to the new world, so to speak, wouldn't they?
Yeah,
to a degree.
That as a game, I mean, my history's a bit shaky here. It's not so good in my war history. You're talking the late 1800s when it was like formalised as we're going to play this game. Here are the rules.
Yeah.
And that was, like, Oxford and Cambridge universities played like this Vasta game in Switzerland, which is considered like one of the earliest games
right?
In like 1890 something or 1880 something. So British, but and then obviously now like Canada, it's the sport. It's massive.
Canada's the home of it, isn't it? Yeah.
And a few other like Finland, it's also the main sport. Yeah.
Is it?
Other places where like Russia, it's very popular, but there's also other sports. Like Canada and Finland, it's like they're the number one. Number one.
Yeah.
And like what's cool there is in the town. So it was a town of 8,000.
Yeah.
And they had a team that was like a junior team. There was like 16, 17-year-olds, but they were developing into like the pros.
Yeah.
So everyone in the town would go and watch this. You know what I mean? Like you'd have like 2,000 people in a town of 8,000, but all be there.
Yeah.
You know,
I bet the atmosphere is electric, wasn't it?
Awesome, yeah. Awesome.
Because there's no aggro or nothing, is there? Apart from on the rink.
No, amongst the fans, not, no. So I got into it originally because I got two older brothers who moved to Nottingham.
Yeah.
And Nottingham's interesting because in the Second World War, there was Canadian Air Forcemen were based near Nottingham.
Right.
And they were already big hockey players.
Yeah.
And so they founded a team called Nottingham Panthers, which is one of the oldest and biggest teams in the country.
Right.
Still a professional team now.
Yeah. Oh, we do have pro teams, right?
It is the most popular indoor sport in the UK.
No way.
Yeah, because you think about football, rugby, everything.
Yeah, everything's outside. Yeah.
So yeah, like Nottingham Panthers now they'd have thousands in.
Bloody
week,
hell.
about 5,000 in.
Well, I know because my daughter, she's studying at Sheffield.
Yeah, Sheffield's big.
And
Steelers.
whenever if you happen to be there when there's a game on, they're all heading towards, and everyone's got the gear
Nottingham
on.
Sheffield is the big rivalry.
Oh, is it? Is it? Because I suppose they're relatively close, though, aren't they?
Yeah.
So it'd be like a local derby.
So, like I say about it being about the rink. So in the UK, certain spots. So there's basically like Nottingham, Sheffield, Coventry, Cardiff, Belfast. They have arena-sized ice rinks.
Right.
There's a rink.
Yeah.
Lots of seats.
Yeah.
So they have big teams.
Yeah.
Other places like Fife, so I lived in Scotland for a year and used to play in Kirkcaldy.
Yeah.
They've got a long tradition. It's one of the oldest teams in the country.
Yeah.
But it's a small rink. It's a small rink because it's just a small town.
So there's no one about. So no one watching it particularly.
Maybe
just
1,000 people.
Yeah.
500.
1,000 people.
Yeah. Oh no, for the town it's massive.
Yeah.
For the town it's massive. But like, there's a limit. This is what I mean. The teams all rely on the facility.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's big. So yeah, so my older brothers moved there, and when I was about 12, I was visiting them, and they were like, "Oh, let's get you to the hockey game." Because in Nottingham, it's quite big. Like obviously after the football, and probably the cricket and whatever else. Like it's still a pretty big sport in the town. And so they took me along, and I was just the right age to get into a sport. You know what I mean? And it just captured my imagination. And then I would start watching like NHL games from North America. Because it was 3 a.m.
Yeah.
So before my 5 a.m. run, genuinely, before my 5 a.m. run, I'd get up about 2 o'clock, watch a couple hours of the game, go back to bed for a bit, get up for like, what an idiot. Stupid. But and it's all dead grainy streets. Much better now because it's like, just on demand, I can watch the previous nights.
Yeah.
But really weird like how I got into it. But I just got into it in a really big way, and it just sort of lasted. And then having the opportunity to play, and I'm not like great shakespeare because I started so late. Yeah. And really all relies on the skating. Yes. You have to be a good skater to be a good player. And my skating is not the best. No. Like compared to the average person, it's probably fine. But and I'm not. I try to get better at the running. I don't really try very much at the hockey. I'm just there to have fun. I'm just there to have fun.
And is it as brutal as it seems? At your level, perhaps not.
No, not at the rec level. No. Not at the amateur level. I mean, it's physical. It's contact sport.
Yeah.
But at the sort of like non-professional levels, we don't really do like big open ice hits, lay each other out, concussed. But the professional game it's all contact
recently
sport.
There was that guy that was unfortunately died.
He was a Nottingham Panthers player.
Was he?
Yeah. So that was like.
That wasn't Nottingham Panthers though, was it?
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, he was
in this country?
Yeah, it was in this country.
Oh my God!
And that was what was interesting because it was like global news and everything, but it was that team. It was my team, and that was just freak accident.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's one of those things like there have been other instances of people getting cut.
Yeah.
And now, so there was a rule change where before that, so neck guards is like optional bit of kit.
Right.
It's pretty much mandatory for everyone
now.
They basically just said after that.
Because I imagine that would be the only open bit of skin, would it?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah. I mean, pro still. You can wear a full cage, like I do, because I'm like, I'm not. I don't want to smash my face in that. It's just a bit of fun, isn't it? But a lot of players, even at my level, still just wear just the eye visor, so their jaw could get smashed
completely. And then you look at the goalie. It's like
that's totally
I'm surprised they can even move.
Oh yeah,
it's just like, they're just
compared to like a lot of sports that we play in this country. Like you have a lot of padding on. You've got pads everywhere. There's certain patches where if you get hit with the puck, that hurts.
Does
if
it?
You're standing in the way of a shot. If you're a defenseman, like I often play defense,
and you're trying to fly, wasn't they?
Yeah, they do, and it's a hard bit of rubber. I mean, it really. The joke is like they're for whatever reason they're usually made in the Czech Republic, and it says "Made in Czech" on the side, and the joke is you don't really want to get hit with a puck, but tends to not be like because obviously the classic thing.
Did I get airborne the pucks or not? Did I? So it's not just along the floor.
It's not,
so you just whack it and then.
Yeah. I mean, it's not so much as like field hockey where they sort of like do that scooping flick and it flies a bit, but it tends to be in a shot. Yeah. You're shot on goal.
Yeah.
A lot of them will rise.
Yeah.
Because the goalie can basically get down on the knees and cover the whole bottom.
Yeah.
If they've got time, they can cover the whole bottom of the net because it's a small net.
Yeah.
So you're trying to pick little corners. Yeah. Like top left corner. Little gap. So you need to,
So no one needs so much padding in the goalie.
Oh yeah, no.
Because what have they done? Have they ever done a thing on the miles per hour of one?
Yeah. So like, they do like records and stuff, and it's like 100 miles an hour. Like the guys that
that's
I
going
would
to take you
play
out
with
if you
could
didn't
get
have
to like 80s, maybe 90s.
No
but like
way.
100. I don't know what the record is now. Like maybe 110, 111. Yeah. That's
with
a hard bit of.
Yeah, that's going to serious injury in it.
And the incredible thing is, if you look at ice hockey goalies from before, like from the 60s, 70s, even 80s.
Yeah.
They didn't wear masks. They didn't wear, like, they had a few pads on, but they didn't wear face masks. And there's some pictures. You can just look it up, Google it. Their faces.
They're just
scars.
Battered.
Pure
look
scars.
Like they've been in the ring with Tyson.
It looked like Frankenstein's monster. And you feel bad, and you're like, man, like,
you must love his job.
What a job.
You're trying to be a goalie.
And so,
an ice hockey goalie.
Yeah, and when the first people started putting masks on, they were like, you're a wimp.
Yeah, you're
a wimp. You put a mask on here. Oh, yeah, you're not man enough to take pucks to the face. And now...
100 miles an hour.
Yeah, now it's like this, obviously, full wrapped up neck, everything.
You can barely tell that they're human.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's savage. But, like, I guess they were just harder. We're just wimps now. Yeah.
So, how often do you get to play then?
So, now it's like every few weeks.
Is it?
Few weeks, yeah.
So you still kind of keep your eye on so to speak. Is there a league?
I might have to switch down to Blackburn because that's actually close to me now.
Is it closer?
As much as I like the lads at Dumfries, I think that's going to be quicker.
And can you just rock up?
Well, they do like training sessions that are relative. As long as you've got a decent level of skill, it's not like a beginners club, you know what I mean. But like, as long as then you can join up, and then they're not. Fortunately, they're not like on your case if you can't come with because they understand it's the way.
So they've got a fairly big squad. And they kind of pick.
It depends on who's there. But like for certain games of like Dumfries, like they do quite a lot of tournaments. They're pretty good, pretty organised.
So there's a fair bit of travelling involved.
Yeah, like they probably do as much as any of the rec teams. Like they go to Hull and they go to like Edinburgh, like Dundee.
Yeah.
It's quite a good.
So it's not
in Scotland. It's quite popular.
So even the Scottish, it's not like like the football. They have the Scottish League and the English League, and never the twain shall meet. It's not like that.
Not for Dumfries because they're sort of on the edge there.
Yeah.
But in the like the top level in this country, the Elite League, that has 3 Scottish teams. So they've got Glasgow, Dundee, and Fife. Kirkcaldy.
Right.
And that's in amongst your Nottinghams and Sheffield.
Yeah,
so
they all
travel. And Belfast, which I'm sure is a bit of a ball ache for everyone. So you've got constantly Belfast. But so that's like a national level.
Yeah.
And when they get down to like the lower semi-pro levels, that's a bit more regionalised.
Right.
And the rec teams tend to, I don't think we'd go down to like London for or Cardiff or whatever. But
so
you have to travel a bit because there's not that many rinks.
No, exactly.
There's not many teams.
Yeah.
If you play football, you never have to go more than an hour, would you?
But, no. Because these are like an international kind of, the rugby's just recently been on. Is there a similar thing for ice hockey?
So there's World Championships.
Yeah. Where like the Panthers could play in it and stuff like that.
So not so much for teams. There's one European version where it's for clubs.
Yeah.
And one British, because we're not as good as, for example, like Sweden, Finland, Czech Republic. They're all bigger, much bigger in terms of ice hockey.
Yeah.
So we just get one club goes into that. But in terms of like GB, like British team playing. Obviously, there's the Winter Olympics every 8 years. That's a big one. But there's also every year there's a World Championship, and that's organised on a sort of tier system. So every country in the world gets to play in one division of the World Champs.
Yeah.
But it's obviously the top one is like Canada, US, Russia, Finland, Sweden, all them.
Yeah.
And Great Britain pops in and out of that division.
Does it?
It's promotion relegation. So year on year.
Yeah.
In recent years we've done well because we've stayed in. And our aim is really to try and stay in that top group.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's how many is it? Somewhere in the teens. You know what I mean? So it comes down to. Obviously, we wouldn't beat Canada. It just would not happen.
Yeah.
Would not happen.
How come? Are they just? Obviously, there's skill involved in it, but is it the size of the players?
No, I honestly think if for some reason in this country, if someone went around building rinks everywhere, got a bunch of youngsters in, and raised them up, then we would become a big.
Right.
It would become a big thing.
Right.
It's purely because the sport is a minority sport in this country because of
the lack of facilities,
and so some players become really good, but they have to be so into it, so passionate about it. Some of them go out and play in Europe or something to get more experience and stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas in Canada, it's like every rink. So in the town I lived in, there was the arena, and there was 3 outdoor rinks. Because in the winter, they just flood it like a pond and you skip it. Right? So 4 rinks for 8,000 people. Yeah. Well, in this country, I'm sure if you divided population by rinks, it would be like millions per rink. Yeah. So I think that's one of the things. But GB does all right. It does all right.
For what it is. Yeah. I suppose it's the same as the skiing, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
You know, we're never going to beat the Swiss and the Italians and the French because they've got it on their doorstep.
Honestly, I think it's fine. That's normal, isn't it? That's the way it should be.
Well, exactly.
If it's something you can play there, then they should be good at it. Yeah. And if it's a bit artificial, as it is in a warmer country, you shouldn't probably be pumping ice everywhere. You know, there's climate change. You probably shouldn't be spraying the country with rinks. So I'm all right with it. You know what I mean? Like in Canada, in the winter, kids can go out and play with just a pair of skates. Yeah. Just like in this country. Yeah.
Well, it's just like kids get a football and go down the rec and play football. Exactly. They'll do exactly the same thing.
And that's how sports get big, is when normal people can play it at a low level casually.
Just do it.
That's how things get. That's how things get there. Surfing, you know what I mean? Like, where do the best surfers come from?
Cornwall.
The beach.
Yeah.
You have to live near the sea.
How many Cornwall? How many surfers do you live?
You don't
live in Birmingham?
Live in the middle of Russia, like 1,000 miles from the ocean.
Exactly.
And it makes sense. It's perfectly fine. And that's why, like, fell runners, where do the best mountain runners in England come from? From the lakes. And Yorkshire. From the lakes.
From the lakes, really.
Because we've got the mountains.
Exactly.
So it makes perfect sense. Like, it wouldn't make sense for someone from London to be running up downstairs to try and get good at running up fells.
Exactly.
It's
not going to happen. Not going to happen. I think on that note, we've come full circle perfectly, haven't we?
Back to fun,
So thank you ever so much for coming.
Yeah, thanks very much.
I've totally enjoyed tonight. I learnt loads. Nice. I hope other people listening to this and watching this have also learnt a lot more tonight, because I certainly have. It's been brilliant. Awesome. Really good fun.
Well, thanks for doing the podcast. Like I say,
thank you.
I listened to a lot and I really enjoyed ones you put out.
Thank you very much.
I've been there walling away listening to me.
Yeah. Excellent. Brilliant. Well, there's more to come. So. As usual, if you have liked it, if you wouldn't mind giving me a good old like and a subscribe. I think somewhere on this video, I'm pointing somewhere on the screen, which is really odd just pointing at the camera now, but somewhere there's a like and subscribe button that I've added. So if you could do that for me, that would be fabulous. But yeah, stay tuned for more to come from here in the Caravan of Love, and we shall see you all very soon. Thanks guys, have a good night. See ya.